Today's guest is Veera Mahajan, who is the author of Unreported, a domestic abuse awareness guidebook. She is a speaker and she encourages women to live empowered lives by learning how to live and teaches how to do that by a formula that she lives by. She's also producing a message film called Unreported. So, Veera, thank you very much for being on. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. And thank you for inviting me on.
You're very welcome. And yeah, I know we had a little bit of a chat before this episode started. And what was very abundant to me, like right off the bat, was like, you're somebody that's coming in with this vast knowledge, vast experience of a bunch of different things. And what I'd love for you to just break down for us and give us some context of like, how did you get to doing what you're doing? How did you write this book? What are you doing right now? Floor is yours to fill us in for all that.
Okay, my background in education was computer science. I have a bachelor's in computer science. And I ran a business with my husband, who's ex-husband now, but he was also in software. So we started a software business. We were very successful, and then we sold it, started another business. It was doing well. And then 9/11 happened. A lot of our contracts were falling, and business was still alive. We were still able to sustain ourselves and also make some changes to hopefully potential growth. But in the same time, it was very difficult, I think, for my ex to deal with the losses, because in the past 12 years we had grown like really well and sold the company, and this new company was also doing well, and then everything was just falling up. It was more of a downfall, I would say, instead of like constant growth. And it just started affecting our home life, and a lot of struggles, and so which ended up in divorce. And while the divorce was happening, he was also, or the reasons for the divorce was that he was also becoming very aggressive and angry and just violent. And I would call it abuse. I mean, I don't want to hide from the word because that's what it was. And that's what I'm trying to encourage women to not hide from the word. Otherwise, you don't do what you need to do. So I'm going to use that word. So that's what was happening. And I started just thinking to myself during the divorce. It was a long year and a half process, that I don't want to ever go through that again. So, like they say, you can't change the other person, you can only change yourself. So I really took that to heart, and I wanted to analyze my life. Like, yes, there's a perpetrator, but there's also a victim, and how they both play a role, even though the victim doesn't have an active role but have a passive role by allowing the abuse to happen. And my father was also a very aggressive and abusive person. So I felt like I have lived most of my life in under someone's control. And it's, people may think it's cultural. It's not, because I interviewed women from all cultures, and a lot of American women. People go through that here also. And so I started like interviewing women and men who have gone through abuse and have lived a better life, are living a better life now, and who are also happy. For me, success was not just, okay, they are financially successful now on their own, but they also have to be happy. They're not bickering and fighting and just whining and complaining, living in the past. So I wrote that book, and to understand how do I go from here. Getting a divorce, getting separated or free is not my only goal. Now I have to live a better life. I have to have a better chapter, a happy chapter. So that is how I wrote the book. And that's where I learned the formula that I was telling you about, that I live with now. And that's learning to live, Live. You don't just use the word live, learning to live. What does that mean? And I broke it down to live. L for loving yourself, I for insisting on freedom. And you can't just say, it's okay to be feeling controlled and abused sometimes and you're free the other time. You have to be free all the time. You have to be loved and safe all the time, not living on crumbs of love. So, and insisting on freedom, then victory over victim syndrome. If you keep yourself in a victim mentality, in the cycle of abuse, there's a, like I said, a perpetrator and a victim. If you're a victim, you'll find the next perpetrator. And if you're not a victim, then you're nobody's victim, right? Then you're really free. And then E, of course, if you have all that, you have an empowerment and you can live an empowered life. So that's the formula I live by now. And from there, I the book was finished, and or just the writing part of it that was finished. The book was not published yet. So I moved. Divorce was over. I moved from Michigan to California, and here I met someone else here who was writing a magazine, and I liked the title. They had a Malibu Chronicle, all good news. I had never heard of that phrase, all good news in Michigan. It's like, really, it's all good news. It's all good was like a very common phrase here in Malibu. So I joined him to buy, bought a part of the magazine, and then eventually I ended up buying the whole thing. It was a tabloid, like a newspaper, and I turned it into a really nice magazine that I showed you earlier. So I kept some of the covers on the frame, and so I from that, while I was doing that, it really gave me a lot of opportunity. It was a cathartic place for me to write. I was also writing to connect to other people, and then it was the audience were asking for more. It was a win-win. And I was helping someone else, their articles, and I was always looking, because my tagline, I was like really um, connected to that, all good news. Always look for something positive in whatever we wrote, and of course we has the ads and all that stuff to survive, to pay for the magazine. So it was like a nice glossy magazine. I did that for 6 years, but in the process, while I was doing that, I also did spiritual psychology masters in that, and I did a um, mediation and dispute resolution masters at Pepperdine, because even though I was out of it, the abuse, and I was living a free life, there's always the little thing in you, but why did me or my children have to suffer through the abuse? So I wanted to, the spiritual psychology is like amazing for that. Either somebody can study it or call me, I will help you. It just kind of helps you get at peace. Now I feel like everything that I learned through living in abuse is like a boot camp training. No matter what you want to do, you have to learn, like a police officer or a soldier or somebody. You have to go through some really hardcore training to be an expert. And I feel like I went through that training to be able to do what I'm doing now. So I don't have any hard feelings. It's just I learned a lot, and it was able to give me some peace of mind that I'm not going to just be that victim person who stayed there and abused and do what. Now there's a meaning to it, right? That was my training. So then about 6 years later, I felt like, magazine was becoming more of a job. I was just doing other people's articles and just buying and selling ads and just, working. And by the time I had already got my other trainings, and I wanted to help people resolve conflicts so they can live a happier life if they are going to be in a relationship, or help them mediate and be separated from either a business partnership or a marriage partnership or whatever it is. So that's what I was doing. And then, of course, COVID happened, and it was hard to get clients. And I still, like I told you, haven't figured out how to get clients from social media. I post a lot of stuff and I get comments, but not clients. So, which is fine. I'm still getting the message out. That is my basic passion. But of course, it's a business and it's work, and I would like to make it, a working business career. So that's where I am right now. That's what I'm doing. And like, oh, okay. So I told you, with the lack of clients now, I still have a few I'm working with, but not enough. And so I'm realizing there's only so many hours, and I spend a lot of time with the clients that I do spend. And of course, I get paid, but I'm working with a few people. And I would rather, I was teaching at a school. And then at the end of COVID, or it's not over, but when school started opening again, they sent me this wonderful letter, and that's what kind of brought this whole change from working one-on-one to speaker, because they said I was working part-time helping resolve conflicts at the school. And they said, asked me to come back because I was able to reduce the violence, the um, conflicts by 75%. And like that is where my works like the best value would be, to be able to speak to a bigger audience, like a classroom, like a college or university, or a group of people. So if I can take my message out into the way we should live and empower the women and the girls, or anybody who lives in a victim mentality or lives with a victim syndrome, to help them get out of that and be able to self-respect, self-love, and demand that, expect that. It's not once in a while. We don't live on crumbs of love. If somebody's loving, you have to love all the time. And so that's where my whole change of career is happening right now. And I'm trying to figure out how to do that. I actually was invited. I just came back from England. I spoke at Oxford University at a global education summit. And that was again about women empowerment. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm trying to go now, to speak to bigger audience and take the message out, and also about living in conflict free or lesser conflict relationships, business or personal. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I mean, there's so much in just that story that it's like there's like 10 different various threads we could pull on just to go in many different directions. So I applaud you for really living such a full life and bringing so much into like positivity into the world. And like the through line that stood out for me, and this has come up often on the podcast, is like that sentiment that like your mess becomes your message,
Mhm.
right? Like you said with the boot camp and the training, like I had to go through
Yeah.
this tumultuous time in order to really find the parts of myself that are now going to resonate with a positive impact in the world. So I think that's, for anybody listening, that's very palpable and very clear. So I think kudos to you for that. And then just to kind of bring it back to the current situation, because you mentioned multiple times, like, okay, well, I have these few clients that I'm working with, but I would like to work with more. I would like to reach more people as opposed to just kind of help people one-on-one. The stuff that I did for schools, like I would want to do that for institutions. And then maybe like I would like to speak. So how in your
Corporations or any groups, women are everywhere. Victims are everywhere.
correct, right? Yeah, there's no shortage of who needs to hear this message, 100%. So how would you then define your business problems right now?
Just how to reach people. Who do I reach even at a corporation, or who do I, you know, reach at the school even? Everybody is either shortage of money, shortage of time, shortage of staff. I was working with LASD here in California. Everybody loves what I'm trying to bring, because I can have courses and teach students and teachers how to help resolve conflicts, because especially I was teaching at one private school. Public schools are bigger and have bigger problems and more number of problems. But they said, we don't even have staff. We're using our office staff because teachers are not available. Either they had COVID or they quit jobs or whatever. There's not enough teachers. So they're using the office staff to help teachers to have their assistants. So there are a lot of different issues why things are now moving forward. I put a lot of work in that, and everybody loved what I was trying to bring to that school, but it just didn't move forward. So now I'm just thinking maybe I can go more on a speaking thing, and out of that, if somebody still wants and is ready to work with me on one-on-one or on a course or on a
Okay,
teaching.
so I'm just going to actually pause you right there, not because I don't think this is relevant, but because what I'm hearing you describe are like options. like
Uh,
these are the paths and the options that I can have, and I would like to go potentially down this road or that road, right? But the original question was like, how would you define the business problem that you have? And you said, well, how do I reach more people? And then your brain went into, well, these are all the options that I have. So
Speaking
how
engagements,
would you
I think
define the
what I
problem?
want, yeah, the problem is how do I uh, book speaking engagements? Out of that, options will come. But I think my focus right now is to have more speaking people to book me for speaking. And then
Okay.
it depends on from that audience what happens forward.
Okay. And booking more speaking engagements would yield what?
For me or for the audience?
No, for you.
For me, I mean, for one, of course, I'll be able to spread the message of better living and hopefully encourage people to live. And that is kind of fulfills me in, on a mental level, on an emotional level, what my message is. And in response, because I want to have paid speaking engagements, so that will fulfill my career as a business requirement fulfilled. So so then I won't have to do another odd jobs. I could make this, and I want to make this as my main career.
Okay. So if you had to choose between speaking or coaching or mediating, you would
Yes,
choose speaking
I
above
would.
all of
I
those.
would at this point. I would choose speaking because I've tried the other, and I think it's been a natural progression towards this.
Got it. And
So I want to travel around the world. I want to meet as many people as possible and talk to and speak in front of as many people as possible. That is my goal right now.
got it. And like if you look at all the efforts that you're doing right now,
Mhm.
right? So you mentioned many different things from coaching to mediating to social media to talking to people, whatever. What percentage of those are geared towards booking more speaking engagements?
Right now, I am trying to reach out to people that I know that I've already worked with. And so that's how I got this one speaking engagement at Oxford University I just came from.
Mm-hmm.
And here also, I'm trying to reach out. I am going to be pitching to speaking bookers on a few days, I think next Tuesday and then the Tuesday after. So I am making those kind of efforts. I'm speaking. I'm also training to be a TED speaker. So I'm just trying to make myself more credible as a speaker, even though I know I have the right message and I am an author and I am making a film. So I have the credibility of my work. But as a speaker, I'm just trying to, you know, be on more stages so people can see me speaking. So getting those bookings and being booked for a speaker doesn't not only help me in my career and getting the message out, it also helps me use every stage as the resume for the next. So
Okay. So back to the original question, and what percentage of your week is spent on activities that can actively book more speaking engagements?
oh, right now, that's all I'm focusing on. Whenever I'm thinking about work, this is what I'm doing.
Okay. So what, like, if you had to break it, like, if you look back at your schedule of last week, what percentage goes towards booking
Percentage
speaking
of my day or percentage of my work?
of your week?
Uh, at least I would say 3-4 hours a day spent
Okay.
just or
So three,
more.
4 hours a day. So let's just say whatever. We cap it off at 4.
Mhm.
So 20 hours a week you spend booking,
Booking
actively
and
booking.
training, no training part of it. So booking and training
Okay,
because
so
we're
pause
training
right
for
there.
the
So when you say training, you mean like becoming a better speaker.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
perfect. So out of those 20 hours, how much is spent approximately
Mhm.
becoming a better speaker versus becoming like getting more speaking engagements?
Mm, 60% or 70% on the speaking training, or
Hmm.
just working on my writing and all this stuff, and 30% on actually reaching out to people.
Okay. So out of those 20 hours, 60% is spent on refining your craft and getting better at the, art and the skill of
Mhm.
speaking. And the remainder of that, so what, probably about 8 hours spent on actively getting more speaking engagements.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, right, the discussion has gone from my number one priority is getting speaking engagements
Mhm.
to, well, the reality is maybe 20% of my time is actually spent on what I say is my number one priority.
Yeah, but it kind of goes hand in hand. I can't just focus on that and leave my speaking kind of to, I'll see. Some people work like that. You get a gig first and then try to, be ready for it. But I'm constantly speaking while I'm looking for gigs. I am like right now, what I'm doing is October is a domestic abuse awareness month, right? So I am making a huge effort to speak and read a part of my book every day. So because my book is about domestic abuse awareness and October is for that. So I thought it also helps me. And I've seen just in the last few days, it just helps me be on the phone, on the camera. Like somehow it's kind of interesting. I'm on the camera with you, but I'm not thinking of camera. I'm just speaking with you. And I'm
Sure.
okay. I'm okay speaking with people. I don't have any issues. I'm pretty comfortable. But
Right.
it's
And so just so I just want to clear it up, right? Like
mm,
I have full respect, and I think it's an amazing thing that you are like sharpening your axe of the
mm,
skill of speaking. Like I think it's a beautiful thing and it's a necessary thing, right?
mm,
So none of what I'm reflecting back to you is about like you should do this or you should do that. Personally, like it's your business, it's your life. You're going to do what you want to do. What I'm merely reflecting back to you is, right, it's very hard for you to communicate with precision the exact thing or outcome you're looking for. And when I have to keep asking you to like refine your answer or like answer the specifics
mm,
on what I'm asking for,
mm.
to me, it's reflected back in the proportion of time spent as you've shared it so far and
You're
how
right.
that relates to the goals. Like if
Mhm.
my goal is booking speaking engagements, but
Yeah.
I'm only spending 20% of my time, I would say there's a gap between what your intention is and where
Yeah.
your actions actually are. Now,
Yeah.
the reasons and the justifications for that, sure, we can dive into those, but
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a disconnect there
Yeah.
that I think is reflected in the disconnect of like being very precise. Like, this is my business problem. This is what I want.
Yeah.
So that clarity, I think, seeps into one or the other. So what lands for you from that?
No, totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. I mean, I know what I'm doing, and that has to be on its own time to make it better. But if I'm going to book the gigs, there has to be enough time spent or made that as a priority. Because actually, this one person that we're learning from, he, and then you forget as soon as he's done talking, he said he wouldn't wear his pants on till he's called 20 people. So in the morning, the first thing he does is sit on the phone and call 20 people. And, like that's the challenge he put on himself. I'm not going to wear my pants on till I call 20 people. So I have to make that kind of challenge if I'm going to start booking, you know, that has to be the priority number one, and get
Yeah,
the
like
book.
that would be more reflective of the priorities you say that you're having. Because right now, I would say, based off of what you've told me, like if I assume you work 40 hours a week, half your time is spent towards
Right.
engagements, but the majority of that is spent on actually getting better at the craft. And then the other 20 hours are going to be spent on the clients that you do have, making whatever like income you're making right now from the other work. So it's like the thing that I'm saying that as a priority is actually the last thing on my list of things to do.
Yeah, you're right. I am not putting as much time and work in actually booking that I should. And I'm focusing more on just becoming a better speaker first.
Right. So then it really comes back to either why, or are your priorities actually clear? Like, do you actually know what you want? So which one do you think resonates more? Like exploring
Uh,
why or the clarity?
yeah, I do want and need to have the bookings. Otherwise, my work is like a social work. It's not a career until I get paid booking, right? Paid speaker engagements. And so I need to focus on that. And I'm pretty sure my speaking, and people have told me I just spoke and they were happy. So I know my skill is at a pretty good level. And once you book, then you can always make it specific to that booking. So you're right. I have to make the booking a priority and not stop till I get the paid speaker gig booked.
Okay. And tell me more about this sentiment of like, well, the work right now is like social work unless I'm getting paid for it. So tell me more about that.
Uh, and I love it. I don't mind it. But the only thing is, it doesn't fulfill. I'm not at that stage in my life to just do social work. I do need to make a living. So I do need to generate income out of that. And since I'm giving up my other income generating business of one-on-one consulting for this, this has to generate income. So,
Okay.
so I have to have paid gigs. So,
So in that case, let's just go through the same process again. So what percentage of your week is spent in this like social work category?
uh, I'm like I told you, I'm making a huge effort about reading my book online, and people are reading, but no clients. So it's all social, you
Okay,
know.
well, so pause right there
Mhm.
because, and again, this goes back to the clarity piece. Like I understood that as you're actively working with people in a very low fee or no fee
Mhm.
environment, but you're sharing it as, well, I'm getting my message out there.
Yeah. And which is
Okay.
also important to get the gigs, because people do look at your social. Whoever's going to give me a gig eventually, they are going to look at the social media. And I've had that good feedback from people who I've worked with, that they see me as an active person on this subject. So, and all that helps also. So then I'm kind of charting it out to, or giving it up to, as okay, this is all part of the preparation for somebody to have. This is like a big resume building thing.
Possibly. Right.
Mhm.
And again, I think this is going back to that central question of like clarity and definitions and making sure that things are defined so you know where
Mhm.
it is that you're going. Because
Yeah.
right now, to me, it's a bit confusing from the outside looking in. And I'll share with you my confusion, which is things like, okay, I read my book for social media. To me, that falls in the general space of simply getting my work out there for whoever might pick it
Mhm.
up, which
Mhm.
means people can passively pick it up. People can be like, oh my God, I totally resonate with that. Or somebody could be like, okay, this is cool. I want to book this person. Right.
Right. Right.
However, in that space, it is very nebulous, meaning like anybody could read your book online and essentially do the exact same thing that you're doing. So, number one thing extracted from that is like, well, what's the value of you reading your book? Especially, what's the value of you reading your book to somebody looking to book a speaking engagement, right? Because somebody looking for that's going to have different needs than somebody passively finding stuff they can relate to online, or even maybe wanting to get coaching or whatever around that
Mhm.
thing. So that right there, like it's like this activity, there's not really a defined strategy or purpose behind it, or there's no clear outcome on what this needs to be. So you're just kind of doing more things. And then
Mhm.
not to mention, it sounds to me like there's instances where you go or you say yes to environments where you're going to utilize your really good skill set, but not really, like you say yes to not getting paid to utilizing that skill set. So again, what
Never
lands for
getting
you there?
yes to not getting paid. You're right. But I'm also using these as links and my practice, which we've gone over a few times, that it is giving me practice, and also gives me a link if somebody says, what are you doing on the subject, or what are, instead of sending my book, I can send them a link to me reading the book. So it has some value, but not enough. I'm just staying active on the subject, basically.
Correct. Like this is like one of the filters I oftentimes use that I've learned from people that like I've studied is this filter of more versus closer,
Yeah.
right? When you don't define where you want to go, it's
Mhm.
really hard to judge whether you're moving closer to that target.
There was
So
another reason for this book reading. I just didn't forget, but I just forgot to mention to you. Before starting to read, which was about 7 days ago, I also ran it by the director of my film, and we're in the process of also casting people. So, because my book and my movie are the same name, and they're also on the same subject, even though they're different stories, but so they can send my links. So it's like a short reading now, right? Instead of a whole something, actor's not going to read the whole book, and they may not even read the whole script. So, so this was a good way of even for him to introduce the film or the idea to different people. So it was like a go ahead from him to help him also for the casting. So, so that's
right,
the purpose of me reading the book.
right. So then it comes back to again, how does that help you book more speaking gigs?
Yeah, it may not be directly related to what my benefits are, but making a movie is also my benefit. So if it benefits
It
that,
is,
yeah,
right? But then it's the opportunity cost of that,
yeah,
right? How long does it take to make a movie? What are all the pieces that have to be in place? The
yeah,
timeline in it,
yeah,
your involvement in the early stages, middle stages, end stages. It's like cool that that's all good and great, but
yeah.
it right away falls into the same bucket of is this moving me closer to what it is that I say that I want, or is it just more stuff that I'm involved in doing?
No, no, they're not more. It's a movie, and the speaking engagement are equally important to me. I'm letting go of the counseling part and letting it go kind of lower on my thing, what I'm doing regularly, looking for clients. I'm not anymore. If they come, I'm still doing some mediations because I haven't stopped doing that. I still enjoy doing that. I'm good at that. But I'm moving towards getting more speaking. So, and yes, I do need to focus more time on actually reaching out to the people who are in the power of being able to book someone.
Yes,
So
and
I
I
need
think
to
that
reach out to those people.
I
And
think that actually makes the most amount of sense.
yeah,
Yes. So
so I'm going
yeah,
to spend out of my 40 hours, 20 hours should go into that. 2 hours every day should go into that.
correct, right? And I say that because it's like you had mentioned credibility before. Like, okay, the more of these I have, the more credible I'm going to be. But it's kind of like you lived a whole experience, got out of it in a better place. You wrote a book about it. You've
Mhm.
already practiced speaking. So it's like, okay, maybe you're not an expert speaker, but let's just say you're good enough.
Mhm.
So, like, what more credibility do you really need?
That's true. I need the
Right.
actual gigs now.
Correct. So it's really just reallocating
Yeah.
where you spend your time with the intentions and the goals that
Yeah.
you're saying you want, right?
Yeah. I'm going to have a new challenge for myself
Okay, fair enough.
to
Well,
book a gig by next week.
okay, that is fair enough. I mean, if you want to update me on whether
I
that actually happens, I'd be more than
will.
happy to do an update on the
I actually
on the
talked to
podcast here.
someone in Nepal that I met at my Oxford meeting, and he's asked me for a resume to share with his clients 3 days ago, and I haven't sent it yet. I need to do that today.
Okay, fair enough. Well, in that case, I mean, does this feel complete for you? Or is there still something left outstanding?
No, no, this is really good. It was a good breaking down of what I want and what is am I actually working towards that I stay in my head, and on real life, what am I really doing to get there? Like I said, he's asked me for resume 3 days ago and I haven't sent him yet. It should have been that night if I really wanted the game.
Absolutely.
I do,
So
which
good
I do.
observation, good awareness, right? Okay. So in that case, if that feels complete for you, why don't you just close us off and let everybody know where they can find you, who's the best person to find you. Floor is yours for that.
Well, since that's what we're talking about, I am open for speaking about women empowerment. And I want to not only teach women how to get out of abuse and hold your power and never be a victim, but my objective as a teacher, as I told you before, that I've been a teacher in school and I've learned that's where the most difference happens and the growth happens when the children are already in the process of learning. So I want to teach young women and I want to encourage parents and teachers to teach these girls right from start that they deserve respect so they don't accept anybody's disrespect later. So if girls know right from start that they deserve to be loved and they need to love themselves, so they will never say yes or accept when somebody disrespects them or hurts them. So they are strong enough and secure enough to say, just go away. I don't need you. Because a lot of women and a lot of victims of any, men or women, they stay in relationships because they think they can't live without that person or they can't be alone. Yes, alone is better than being lonely, and alone is definitely better than being abused. So that's what I am really encouraging, and I want to teach the teachers who are parents and teachers and community leaders to teach our students, our young children, women, girls, to grow up strong. So then they will be strong women, because women or girls are just a different gender. They're not a lesser gender. So let's let them live also the way they want to live. So that's what my teaching is, and also live by the formula of the letters in the word live. Don't just use the word live. What is living? Learn what live is. LIVE, love yourself and insist on freedom, victory over victim syndrome, and empowerment. And I want to come and speak on your stages, whatever you have. And please call me, book me. I am ready to come and help your community, your audience.
Beautiful. Well, as always, we'll include all that in the show notes. I think it's a beautiful message that you're standing behind, and I applaud you for it. So thank you very much for coming on, and for everybody else listening, we'll see you on the next one.
Well, thank you, Drasco, for inviting me.